Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Good morning to you all. It's Monday, gray Monday. But the Steelers are 3-0. Oh God, I have to tell you, I am feeling despairing again, and I've been warding off despair rather well since I took that little sabbatical, and it turns out it had about a 2 to 3 month shelf life because I found myself since last we spoke really reacting strongly to so much of what was in the news. And whenever I get into that mode, despair inevitably follows. I'll tell you, one of the things I'm despairing about is our silo mentality, how so many of us, most of us, I suspect, live in these bubbles where we really rarely encounter people who don't generally think like we do. And if we're concerned that maybe we are in the company of somebody who doesn't think like we do, we keep things sort of shallow and avoid any possibility of certainty. I know I tell myself to not look at polls, but we're 5.5 weeks out. That's it. We're 5.5 weeks out. People are already voting. And the fact that clearly so many people intend to stick with Donald Trump says something that I find difficult to deal with on a political level, on a spiritual level, on a level of my sort of sense of having any understanding of my fellow man. I use the term broadly. And one of the things that set me off actually came in about a week ago, and I haven't had the occasion to share it, but I'm going to share it now because it's an email from one of you, Mary, to be specific. And Mary is doing what I have said so many of us need to do, which is getting truly involved, not with more than just her vote. She's working on the ground, as we say, for the Harris campaign. And I'll read you her email. I volunteered on Sunday to canvass for Kamala. I was paired with a woman in her 70s who was very sharp. We knocked on about 20 doors and talked to 6 people. These were registered Democrats. Now that's the thing. If you've ever canvassed, you are given an area. You are given addresses of known registered Democrats. And the canvassing is to make sure those people are going to be out there and voting. The first time I canvassed, I was sort of shocked at the level of information I was given. I thought, geez. So I knew how many registered Democrats were living in each place that I knocked on. I knew if they'd, been a solid Democratic vote, if they voted, if they were people who sometimes voted, didn't vote. And but I didn't understand what canvassing was. I just thought you went and knocked on every door, and that's not it. It's targeted to known Democrats, and that's what, Mary obviously had a list of registered Democrats, as she says. These were registered Democrats living in the suburb of Plum. That's in the eastern sections of this area. We briefly talked to 2 younger people and 4 senior citizens. So there's their demographic, 4 seniors, 2 younger. All of them said they were not voting for Kamala. Now let that sink in, because that's where my stomach went south. These are 6 registered Democrats, 2 young, 4 old, and they flat out told these canvassers they would not vote for Kamala. And they said it, says Mary, with a disdain and even like hatred in their voices. One old coot said he's voted Democrat his whole life, but he's not voting for her because Obama will really be the president, just like he was for Biden. And then he said, Kamala is left of, and he paused to think of someone, Attila the Hun. And Mary says, this is who we're dealing with. That he came up with Attila the Hun is interesting, since Attila the Hun is as far from left, if I understand my history and the term at all, as you could possibly get. But it occurs to me that for many Americans who are relatively uneducated about our history or anybody's history, or the terms socialism, communism, fascism, you can tell that they don't have a lot of meaning. They're just meant as derogatory terms. So that Trump the other day went on a rant about, I think, Kamala, I would imagine, and he literally called her something like a socialist, fascist, communist, as if, one person could embody all of those disparate ideologies. God. But Mary's the fact that she encountered 6 reliably and known registered Democrats in a Pittsburgh suburb and found not one Kamala Harris vote frightened the hell out of me. And it scared the hell out of Mary too, because she ends her email saying, I'm scared that Trump is going to win. And she thinks it's because there are so many crazy, paranoid, racist people in this country. And she said, I went home so defeated. Well, yeah, understandably, that would have been exceedingly distressing. So most of the people I know and who I speak with, I can tell whether they're willing to say it or not that they think Kamala's going to win. I'm one of those people. I just can't. You know why? Because I can't imagine otherwise. Simple as that. And then these damn polls. New York Times coming out today with a poll that shows Trump ahead in the battleground states of Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. And the people who've been saying this is going to be a tight race. Every vote counts. Well, every vote in the right places counts. I suspect they are right. And I just want to go sit in the fetal position somewhere and cry. I do. Because of what that says about my country and the people who live here. It's so dispiriting. It's so frightening. I don't know. So I'm sorry, but I am, I'm scared again. I was not for a bit, and I sure liked it better. But I'm scared again, and I'm scared because the other side um, is not only working very hard uh, to pollute uh, the dialogue, to engage in all kinds of attempts to create fear and division, and to be willing, obviously, to scapegoat uh, minority groups of all kinds, Haitians in Ohio, and well, I needn't run down the list. But they stop at nothing to get the power they crave. And because we know that the Republicans are, in fact, a minority party, that they are a party that most Americans vote against in national elections, and that they only achieve power in the executive branch because of the Electoral College. They've come to terms with the fact that they can't win in a truly democratic election. And so they've been and have gotten quite adept at rigging the election, which, of course, given that they're given to always accusing Democrats of doing exactly what it is they are, in fact, doing. Rigged election. Yeah, rigged in their favor. And so now to see them just openly attempting to put pressure on just a few legislators in Nebraska. Who would know that a legislator in Nebraska is in the bullseye of the entire GOP? So much so that Lindsey Graham, Lindsey Graham, who's a senator from the South, traveled to Nebraska to arm twist in an attempt, and this is how close they think it is, in an attempt to change the way Nebraska doles out its electoral college votes. It, unlike every other state except Maine, doles them out based on congressional districts. And it's a red state. But because they do the congressional districts, there is one district in which Omaha, the largest city, sits. that is blue and goes blue. And as in Pennsylvania, has enough population to sometimes override all the rural and smaller town votes in the rest of the state. So sometimes Nebraska's electoral votes, all of them, go to the Democratic presidential nominee. No, they don't, because again, they're parsed out by district. Here's the calculation, and here's how Republicans fight. If, let's say, Harris were to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, but lost Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, now that is a very possible scenario there. That's not pie in the sky. That's possible. Okay? That one electoral vote in Nevada could well be the difference in the entire presidential race because it could result in a tie if they change, if the Republicans get them to do what they want them to do, if they change to winner take all. It would result in a tie in the Electoral College. And what happens when there's a tie? The House of Representatives, God help us, determines the winner. And again, oddly, not by a raw vote, which wouldn't bode well for us, but by the support of each state delegation, and they've got more state delegations, so Trump would win. So the Republicans, make no mistake, are playing every possible angle. It's why in Georgia they put in this new board, which has now mandated that every vote in Georgia, a very populous state, must now be hand counted, which everybody who knows anything about elections says is, first of all, a disaster in the making, and also creates an obvious potential for chicanery. So there's one guy, one Republican legislator in Nebraska who's the holdout. I would hate to be this man. This man, I can't imagine, has he been put in the witness protection program yet? His name is Mike McDonald. He's a state senator in Nebraska, and he's a Republican. And he's a Republican who's bucking the national Republicans, the state Republicans, every Republican around him, because he's refusing to vote to change the way Nebraska doles out its electoral college votes. Now, if he can withstand the pressure that is being put on him, and you can imagine the thugs being called out, God bless him. The interesting thing about this guy, if you look a little closer, is he was a Democrat all his life. Blue collar Democrat. And he even was elected to the Nebraska legislature as a Democrat. But he is also a staid social conservative and Catholic, adheres to the teachings of his church. And so, on social issues and abortion, the Democrats were an uncomfortable fit for him. And actually, he was censured by the state Democratic Party for some of his votes. And so he said, well, screw you, I'll join the Republicans. It's the only reason he is a Republican. But he's a Democrat in his heart. He's also intending to run for mayor of Omaha next time round. That makes me feel a little more certain that he's going to manage to hold his ground, because I would imagine his mayoral ambitions would be helped immeasurably by standing up to the Republican Party. I can't imagine this guy and the stress that he is under. Can't imagine. But see, there's a guy who really doesn't feel comfortable in either party. And there are so many like him. Solid, stolid, blue-collar Democrat. And the social issues sent him to the Republicans. And we have lost an awful lot of votes because of identity politics and other things. I don't know. So, one of the things that happened over the weekend, which resulted in my more depressed state, was Trump, again, and unsurprisingly, saying that if he lost, it'd be the Jews' fault. Now, so much crap spews out of this guy's mouth that it's hard to, to truly react to anything in particular. But if you're a Jew, that one sure got your interest, because our history is replete with examples of being used as a scapegoat. Anyone who knows anything about Jewish history knows that we're often the scapegoat, the ones who are pointed at as the reason for some unhappy occurrence. And it, of course, this history has resulted in many Jewish deaths. And for him to go there, to say that and to say it in front of a bunch of Jews. Now, what I haven't seen is any actual video of that. And these Jews were Republicans, Republican Jews. God. And to think that they sat there and didn't start booing and hissing when he said that, because I'm sure they didn't, or I would have seen the video. They sat and let him scapegoat them. His exact words, if I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if it happens. And then he went to some other event and said the same kind of thing, only very much more clear. It'll be the Jews. Now, stop and think of what we know as the startling increase in anti-Semitism in this country. We here in Pittsburgh certainly don't have to be reminded of the greatest attack on Jews in this country's history, having occurred just a few years ago, right here. And so we know the place is the country, the United States, a place of percolating hatred of immigrants. And now here we've got the Jews coming in their usual role. Bring in the Jews! The Haitian pet eaters, they're good, but man, bring in the Jews. That any Jew would vote for this man makes my head explode. Makes my head explode. It's like a Jew voting for Hitler. It makes my head explode. He traffics in every anti-Semitic trope that there is and does it unwittingly, unthinkingly. It is so inbred. He has no doubt that Jews have more loyalty to Israel than to this country, American Jews. He doesn't see us as Americans. He does not. And there are quotes, I don't know if I have them here, of him actually, here it is. When he was president, they had a Hanukkah party or something. And at the Hanukkah party, with a lot of Jews obviously in attendance, he introduced the vice president, who he would later tell his followers to kill. But he introduced Mike Pence and his wife. And in introducing them to the Jews, the then president said, "The Pences love your country." He meant Israel. Your country. Because he later called Benjamin Netanyahu your prime minister. I got news for this idiot. I don't have a prime minister. I'm an American. Just a few years ago, on the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, he called a bunch of Jewish Republican leaders and said this: "We really appreciate you. We love your country also." That's unbelievable. I am not an Israeli. I am an American. And because all Americans hail from someplace else within a generation or two or three, they often have feelings of affection and connection with the country they came from. That is not unusual. That Italian Americans like to go to Italy, see family there. That Irish Americans the same, right? I could go on and on. But no other group gets this that we get, that somehow we really are not Americans. And that dual loyalty trope is a biggie in getting Jews killed. I remember in Germany in the 30s, so many Jews who had never considered themselves anything other than good Germans, who had fought in World War I with honor, who served in every capacity in that country, who sang with pride the national anthem. They couldn't get their heads around that they were being told they weren't Germans, that they were some kind of infection in the country. And the ones who couldn't get their head around it, who were in denial, invariably ended up in the gas chamber. Hey, speaking of Israel, I just want to do two quickies on that. Number one, part of my despair is I am increasingly concerned about the obviously widening war there. Netanyahu now, the biggest front he's got going is in the north, not has anything to do with Gaza. It's in, taking out Hezbollah on their northern border in Lebanon. And again, it helps to know the history of this tiny little sliver of land, because when you hear that they are surrounded by enemies, I mean, all you have to do is look. People wanting to kill them, right? So the Hezbollah thing has really picked up steam. But in the picking up of the steam, I wanted to point out that one of the people the Israelis took out was the guy who was responsible for the killing of hundreds of Americans. Hundreds of Americans. It is so odd that we never went after him, given how quick we were to go after anybody and everybody, whether they were involved or not, after 9/11. But anyone who was alive in 1983, and that's when Ronald Reagan was the president, can recall a horrific attack, car bombs that killed 241 American soldiers, killed them dead in their barracks. The guy behind that is one of the guys that Israel took out this weekend. He was also behind the bombing of the US Embassy in Beirut that same year that killed 63 people, and he was involved in the kidnapping of Americans and the keeping of American hostages in Lebanon. This guy, I don't know if anyone's going to send the Israelis a thank you note for this one. And it does bring back the memory of how Ronald Reagan not only put American troops in harm's way by putting them in Lebanon, but when these attacks occurred, he did not retaliate. He cut and ran. He pulled them out. Do you remember that? He let Hezbollah win. They do one horrific attack, two, and we pack our bags and run, the toughest nation on earth, with a Republican president, the beloved Ronald Reagan. Do you remember that? Mm. So the thing about, yeah, well, I don't have anything left to say about the scapegoating of Jews. So you can understand that if he loses, which God, I hope he does, obviously, um, we have already said we know he would not accept a loss. And so his followers would not accept the loss. And as they did not accept his loss 4 years ago when they attacked the United States Capitol. So what are they going to do this time? Especially now that he's told them if he loses, it's the Jews who did it, who are responsible. More synagogues? I can certainly see that happening. Here's the reality. The guy who mowed down the Jews here in Squirrel Hill was acting on a grievance that Donald Trump had promoted, that there were caravans of killers and rapists coming across the border. And in this regard, there was a Jewish organization that assists refugees, HIAS, Hebrew, I'm not sure, what does it stand for? Hebrew Immigrant Assistance? I don't know. And he had read that one of these congregations had been promoting giving to that organization, and that was enough. And 11 Jews died, were mowed down. But he was fueled by Trump and the fears that Trump instilled. George Soros was behind the caravans, the Jew. This guy fell for the Jews will not replace us, that it's Jews getting these immigrants to come in to take all the jobs from good white Christian men. Speaking of white Christian men, Jesus, excuse me. Did you see the thing today about church membership changing? How if you think of churches are overwhelmingly female. Not at the leadership level, God knows. No, there's guys on the altar, and then the most fervent people in the pews are invariably women. And it's women who have kept churches going and synagogues going. It's women who do a lot of the work, right, that keeps them going. But here's what's happening. And again, this is from pollsters seeing changes in things. We already know that church membership has been dropping in the United States for years and years and years. But with Gen Z, the younger Americans, it is taking a different, it's still dropping, but it's the women, it's young women that are dropping away from organized religion. And a lot of churches are seeing very few young women and a lot more young men. Almost 40% of Gen Z women now describe themselves as religiously unaffiliated. Men, just 34%. And people are noting it because these same young men who are now going to church fervently are also voting for Donald Trump, while the young women who have left the church are voting overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris. So I don't know what that portends, and I don't know what that says about the churches, too, that the young women are saying, this doesn't work for me. And I think because they see the patriarchal structure in so many. And in the churches that were talked about in this article that I read, these are evangelical churches that tell women to shut up and serve their husbands. And you can see why a lot of young women would say, I don't think so. And you could see why young men like the message. So, what else I got here? Oh, man. That Mark Robinson guy, the guy running for governor of North Carolina, the so-called black Nazi. I mean, you, if you look up for offensive things this guy has said, um, it, it's it's mind-boggling. But rather than look at him as some strange representation of anything in particular, I think you need to look at the fact that the Republican Party embraced this man, that Republican voters made him lieutenant governor, that Republican voters remain behind him, even as he goes into a church and says some people need killing. And these good church-going Christian Republicans still back him. To me, it tells you all you need to know about the Republican Party. And anybody who would affiliate themselves in any way with a vote, to me, has told you something about their character that is impossible to excuse. I'm scared again. I'm scared again. Because even if somehow Kamala Harris wins, she will be the president of a country that is frighteningly divided. And close to half of which, seems to have lost its cotton picking mind. A case in point. Yesterday, the New York Times had a piece about, kids going back to school. And some of the accoutrements that some parents are buying for their kids, notebooks, pencils, crayons, binders, the backpacks, the usual. But instead, they're talking about how there's a new industry that's formed, and it's selling ballistic armor to children's parents to send them off to school. The technologies that were developed to protect soldiers in war are now being incorporated into items that you should purchase for your child as they head back to school. There was a recent educational trade show, and next to the McGraw-Hill Textbook Company's booth was a booth showing backpacks with removable ballistic shields. Here you have your books, and here you have your body armor, sizes 6X and up. These things, I mean, they did a whole rundown of some of the things available, and people are buying them, and school districts are buying them. The bulletproof backpacks, man, they're big, and they come in so many different colors and patterns. You can get yellow puppies on them and blue dinosaurs, and then, of course, you can get a level of protection that comes with your little puppies. You get the little pink one with the puppies on it, and then you get to choose whether you want the backpack to be able to withstand bullets from pistols or bullets from AK-47s. Because obviously, if you want the protection from AK-47s in your little puppy pink backpack for your kindergartner, you have to pay a lot more than just protection from mere bullets. Bulletproof hoodies, ladies and gentlemen. They're called Wonder hoodies. They say they'll protect all the vital organs. Here's what the company promises. Sit down because I don't want you getting hurt, okay? This is from the marketing material for the Wonder hoodie. If you get shot, God forbid, with our hoodies on, we'll send you a replacement hoodie free. Just include the police report or news clip. You can't make it up. How does Saturday Night Live still, still make it, manage? Because the reality of our nation in so many ways resembles a Saturday Night Live skit. Yeah, school districts can buy bulletproof collapsible safe rooms. In fact, a school district in Alabama just purchased two of them, $60,000 a piece. You know, when my tax dollars go to support public education, I don't know that I was thinking that this was part of what they would go toward. Bulletproof portable dry erase boards. Bulletproof classroom desks. Says here, These desks, created in response to the Parkland shooting, have a lever that, when pulled, rotates the surface upright, transforming them into vertical bulletproof shields for students. The manufacturer is something called, get this, first line furniture. Yes, it's furniture for the trenches of elementary school. And First Line Furniture wants you to know that these desks have been tested against high caliber handguns, AR-15s, submachine guns, hand grenades, and sniper rifles. So you can send your kiddies off to class and feel reassured that you just might see them later in the day. Randy Weingarten, who's, of course, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, said this: arm us with books, counselors, and resources, not bulletproof desks. It is infuriating that rather than having the courage to solve the gun violence problem, we now have to confront the monetizing of fear. One of the guys who manufactures some of this crap says, I came to understand that, I'm essentially manufacturing fire extinguishers. That, someone was trying to guilt trip him about making money off of horror. And he was saying, well, do fire extinguisher manufacturers get pushback? I'm just giving people the stuff they need. And I guess my question is, how does one not despair? How does one not despair? I suppose by digging a hole and getting in. I have a question too. Over the last few days, I was invited by email as a strong Kamala supporter, it said, to attend an event in which some of her surrogates would be speaking in Pittsburgh on Friday night. It said it was Friday at 6, and it said it would be Governor Whitmer of Michigan, and I think one of the woman from Texas who speaks about her personal experience with their abortion law, and I don't know, some actor. I don't know who he was. And it said, if I RSVP, when you RSVP, you will be then later given the whereabouts of this gathering. And there was another such thing that was targeting younger people that came out to tell them that AOC, Alexandria Cortez, was AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, was going to be here yesterday, and that they too could attend. But again, the same kind of don't tell anybody where this is. And I have to say this, I don't quite understand. First of all, I did not, I said no thanks. I mean, I didn't respond because I don't want to go to, I'm not interested, frankly. And as I said to a friend of mine, I don't need to be fired up, which is the purpose of these kinds of things. I don't need to be fired up. But what I don't quite get, I understand that the fact that these things become invitation only, and the security around them it tells you what's going on in this country, that to make these things secure, you cannot tell anybody where they are. My God, when these candidates, the actual candidates, come to town, even media is not told often until the last minute where they are going next, where they will be, because again, fear of the loons with guns. The last time Kamala Harris was in town, it was invitation only. You wanted to go to that thing, tough. And what I don't understand, so I say every once in a while there's one of these big things in an arena somewhere, but we haven't seen that here, have we? No. Open to all who want to stand in line for hours and hours and hours. Um, I don't quite understand how having these invitation only events helps. I really don't get. I mean, I'm not second guessing them, because the people who run election campaigns are professionals and know how you do it, I guess, kind of, every once in a while. I was going to say Hillary's didn't. But I don't understand the preaching to the converted thing. Like, um, unless it is only about firing them up, but the very people that would attend are already fired up. I don't get it. You ain't reaching undecideds. I really don't get it. And since the undecideds are the people you need to get, I think the only way you get those is by somehow accessing however they're getting information, which would mean, since local news is still television, local television news is still trusted by most people, it would be to get your people on local television news, I guess. I don't know. But these singing to the choir, invitation only, secretive things, two of which I had some, you know, notice of this weekend, um, confuse me. I don't get them. I don't. But that just shows that I don't understand, I guess. But I'm just saying. Well, God. I'm sorry if I was down in the mouth today, but yeah, 5.5 weeks, guys. 5.5 weeks. And God knows what can happen in those 5.5 weeks. How about full-born war in the Middle East? That ain't going to help. Seriously. I don't know. So, listen, all that said, have a nice day. All that said, have a nice day, and I'll be back tomorrow with my sister Susan in tow, I believe. I think. I'm trying desperately to get the outro music to play. The one that says that City Paper has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with anything that comes out of my mouth. That one. I can't get it. I might have to sing you out. Oh, there it is. All right, toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live. Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.